Hello everyone, and I need to turn my light on. Welcome to today's spoiler warning, where we are going to be discussing in-depth Bray Wyatt news, updates on Sasha Banks and Naomi, an update on the future of Lacey Evans, and something on Kevin Owens that I've already spoken about on Discord. There is an update on Sasha Banks and Naomi, I believe I've already actually mentioned that one, and something on the future plans for Karrion Kross. There's also been breaking news for everyone who's not a regular here about John Laurinaitis. We've already discussed it last week, but there's plenty that we can sink our teeth into there. We, as always, have plenty of questions as well, so we'll be answering those across the course of the show. So please do remember to hit the like button as we get started. So we want to start with Bray Wyatt. That is, of course, the biggest news of the last few days. Bray Wyatt breaking his silence and talking about wrestling. Now, there has been a lot of talk at the moment about Triple H potentially bringing people back, and for a lot of fans, Bray Wyatt is at the top of that list. So let me tell you what's actually been happening with Bray Wyatt over the last few months, or year as it is. So Bray Wyatt has been in contact with a number of different wrestling promotions who've been attempting to bring him into the fold in their individual promotion. A lot of different promotions have contacted him to find out his wages, his intended requests, and it doesn't actually come down to money for Bray Wyatt. For Bray Wyatt, it largely comes down to creative control of the Fiend character, which is why I've titled this video The Fiend Bray Wyatt, rather than just Bray Wyatt himself. Bray wants to tell a story, a very specific story, and most companies are simply not willing to do so. As such, he was not willing to work for them. Bray Wyatt is looking for creative control, sole creative control of his intellectual property, The Fiend. However, a large part of The Fiend character is actually owned by the WWE, meaning that Bray Wyatt would not be able to use and or play that character in other promotions. Lot to play with there, lot that I've already discussed. Things have changed a little bit over the last few days. Bray Wyatt has been in Hollywood lately, putting together some low-budget films and some horror stories. He's been contacting and contacted a number of producers and directors who want to work with him. The Bray Wyatt cinematic universe is a genuine possibility going forwards. Now, for a while, he's had very little interest in returning to wrestling. Very little interest. Recently there was a conversation with someone in the WWE, I cannot name a name, a conversation with someone in the WWE, which has apparently served to reignite a little bit of a spark for wrestling in Bray Wyatt. There is still a negotiation to take place, and I cannot sit here and say we will get across the line. If you're asking for my opinion, the lack of creative control will still cause a major problem. However, the conversations have begun, the negotiations have started, and there is a little more possibility now than there has been previously. As I say, his recent firing last year did sort of kill the enthusiasm behind wrestling for Bray Wyatt. And while it is not in any way altogether back, and while I cannot sit here and say he loves wrestling again, a spark may have been reignited by the possibility of working with someone and for someone that he massively respects and who he trusts with his character. There has been contact with someone in the WWE. Bray Wyatt has laid out the plan for him, which is full creative control of his Fiend character. He will not be offered that. However, he may be more willing to negotiate with the current setup as it is. We have plenty more news to talk about. The John Laurinaitis firing, Sasha Banks and Naomi's impending potential return, Lacey Evans, Karrion Kross, and a little bit on Kevin Owens as well. But let's get through a few questions and we'll get to that news. I'll give it 5 minutes or so of questions and then I'll get to our next piece of news. So, Simon already asking questions about Sasha. We will be getting to that. Austin says, happy birthday to my favourite, the Queen Shayna Baszler. The Queen and Shayna Baszler, or the Queen or Shayna Baszler? Either way, wonderful choices. How you doing, Austin? Says, I'm starting to really think we're going to see Bray back with WWE. At this point, I am saying with confidence, the most likely place we see Bray Wyatt in a wrestling ring is the WWE. Tommy B is excited for Raw tonight. Jane says, hey Tom, any Sasha news? Yes, we'll be getting to that shortly. James Jones, welcome. Says WWE's been doing their thing. I'm proud of them, except maybe a lot keep changing. lot of change happening. They are currently really pushing Bobby Lashley versus Ciampa. More on that later. Jaden says, Sasha is back to coloured hair. Does that mean something? Yes, it means she wants to go back to coloured hair. Burko the Canadian says, Bray is back. Let's go. Maybe a bit premature on that one. Maybe a bit premature. James says, Burko, him and Johnny Gargano have to get them back ASAP and things are really get real. Johnny Gargano, another one we'll be talking about shortly. James says, it's obvious he's going back because WWE is the only one who can pay him. Well, the WWE can afford him. AEW could have afforded him. Maybe not so much at this particular point in time. Bailey in the Twitch side saying a busy spoiler warning ahead today. Indeed, Bailey. Welcome everyone. We currently have 60 people on YouTube and 12 people on Twitch that I can see. Thank you kindly everyone for joining us. Please do remember to hit that thumbs up as we continue and subscribe if you haven't already. We are currently 9 subscribers away from 1,400. Spider-Boss says, hello Tom, Laurinaitis terminated by WWE and the women's tag team titles back. A good start for this week. Indeed. The tournament for the women's tag team championship starts tonight. There are a number of different tag teams going to be involved. I find it very likely that we're going to get Io and Dakota versus Alexa and Asuka for those championships at some point soon. Spider-Boss says, Sasha Banks was seen with a New York look on the C2E2 event during this weekend. Yes, in her time away she has changed her look slightly. This doesn't actually mean anything. Spider-Boss says, I hope Karrion Kross works this time in his second run with WWE now that he has Scarlett on his side. More on that shortly. Once again, Spider-Boss says, Sasha with new look, incoming return. Guys are reading way too much into the change of look. That's just what she likes to do. Spider-Boss says, Laurinaitis out and what happened with Bray Wyatt? I have answered that one. Jermaine says, hi Tom. Hey Jermaine, how you doing? Jane says, I hope Sasha will return with the rainbow hair. She may, if she returns and if she still has the rainbow hair. People reading way too much into this. Noob says, hello Tom, how you doing? Doing well, Noob. Welcome to the show, mate. Spider-Boss says, Laurinaitis out, Kevin Dunn and Bruce Pritchard are next. I cannot sit here and say that. Johnny Mendez, how you doing, sir? Says, hi Tom, how's it going, mate? Going very, very well, thank you. We hit a bit of a milestone in my relationship today. Slightly ruined by the kids spoiling it ahead of time. But it was a nice milestone and I really enjoyed it. Austin said at this point, I think he might come back. Really do. I definitely think it's more likely now than it was previously. Thomas Phibbs says, hi Tom, any news on Gargano? Nothing at this point in time. Conversations have taken place. As soon as Triple H got the power, as it were, he did reach out to a number of people. I am aware that he has contacted Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, apparently independently, which stood him in very good stead with both of them. Also on Cherry Coke again, which is good news, as you all know. Spider-Boss says if Triple H can bring back the Fiend Bray Wyatt is a huge addition for the WWE. Absolutely, but it really does depend who they have him wrestle against. The Fiend versus Karrion Kross would be a lot of fun. Sean says, hello Tom, hello Sean. And Steve says, Mr. Colohue. Colohue. Hope you're well, buddy. Miro reportedly liked to tweet saying he was booked better in WWE. Would you like to see him back one day? If so, how well do you think he would do? I think he'd do very well under the current incarnation. I think there would be a lot more change, as it were, a lot more rotation. I'd really enjoy a feud between Bobby Lashley and Miro. I'll say that for sure. Sean says, did you hear Carmelo is injured at a live event on Saturday? Yes, and I also saw the video of it. Danny McLeod says, Repo Man returning. That's the dream, mate. That is the dream right there. Johnny Mendes says, is Alvarez reports about the tryouts being a disaster and then being more open to signing independent wrestlers with Triple H in charge true? Yes and no. They are more open to signing independent wrestlers with Triple H in charge. That is certainly the case. However, when it comes to the tryouts being a disaster, that's simply not true. Hi Michael, how you doing, mate? And Connor says, hey Tom, is there any news regarding backstage creative reaction to Liv Morgan being booed? They're looking for a pivot. They're looking to change how they're presenting her because that was not the plan. The plan was for Ronda Rousey to turn heel, but now they're having a little bit of a rethink. And someone high up may be considering the possibility that they have to change tactic here. Berko said, her Dexter Lumis is coming back too. We'll see on that one. I'll believe it when I see it. A lot of people really don't think he's going to make it on the main roster with his current character. So, a little bit more on news. Let's talk Karrion Kross. The plan for Karrion Kross is to have him competing full-time on the SmackDown roster. He will be, at least initially, going into a triple threat scenario, playing spoiler, between Roman and Drew McIntyre. Then the follow-up looks like it is going to be Drew McIntyre directly versus Karrion Kross, with Karrion Kross coming out the winner of that particular feud. It is a planned elevation for Drew McIntyre, but McIntyre is likely to be the one pinned by Roman Reigns in the triple threat. This is believed to be a reaction by Triple H, particularly to a promo that Roman Reigns cut a little bit in the past, where he said that, yeah, SummerSlam I'll take on Cody, and at Clash at the Castle I'll lose a championship to Drew McIntyre. He may have been watching Spoiler Warning at that time, I'll tell you that. Roman Reigns is a fan of the Tom Colohue show. I can say that with some assurity. And the belief was that it became a little bit too predictable how they were going. Triple H took the opportunity to make it less predictable and bring back someone he very much wanted to continue working with. Briefly, as regards Lacey Evans, I did say it was a week and a half ago, on the SmackDown watch party a week and a half ago, that Lacey Evans had been pulled from her match with Aaliyah as a creative decision. Over the last couple of days, the fact that she's out because of creative has come out from a different source, and as such it's hit all the headlines. Clearly people have not been paying attention to a week and a half ago, or in fact last Monday, spoiler warning, when I clarified with sourced information that it was indeed a creative decision to remove Lacey Evans from that particular scenario. They have not yet come up with a new creative direction from her. She will be taking time off before they do so. They are working out whether she will be face or heel going forwards. My suspicion is that it will still be heel, but we'll see how that plays out. They do need more faces in that area. Similar with Kevin Owens, he was carrying an injury. That injury is apparently now being cleared. And much like Bayley was, they are waiting for the moment when he has the right storyline to come back. I do believe we are likely to see Kevin Owens versus Bobby Lashley at some point soon. I don't expect Kevin Owens to be working against someone like Roman Reigns in any short-term period, but there is conversations about turning Kevin Owens face. So if you're a fan of face Kevin Owens, and I tell you Triple H kind of is, you may be seeing more of that in future. As I get to more questions and conversation, please do remember the following. Every like makes a massive difference. We are only 9 subscribers away from 1,400, which is a new record for the channel, and I would very much appreciate getting there. And also, please remember that chat rate is a huge thing on YouTube. The more people are actively chatting and the more they say, the more people are diverted off of whatever they're watching to this show. So just by talking, even amongst yourselves, you are helping the growth of this channel. There are 64 people here, 19 likes. Every like helps. Every single comment helps. So even if all you want to say is very simply, I'm watching, I appreciate that because it boosts this show. Even the bots and the trolls do. David Leary says, Tom, is Zero News a legitimate wrestling news source? I've never seen them actually report anything. I've seen a lot that they've said that other people have reported, and judging by the people that they take information from, no. D. Freeman says, didn't you say since Nick Khan had a part to play in Bray being let go, they would not allow them to hire him back? What has changed in this short time? The guy at the top has changed in that short time. Now, a large part of that is, of course, Vince changing, but it's also the fact that Stephanie McMahon is in power now. And while Bray would have to accept a much, much lower amount of money, and I do feel we need to point that out, while that is a necessity for this, it is much more achievable, particularly with how it is for a cost-benefit analysis. If, for example, Triple H comes in and says he's going to be our world champion for the next 3 years, well, then he's probably worth the money. So it depends on that negotiation. It's also worth pointing out that Bray Wyatt was on one of those cost-benefit analysis lists a long time before he was actually fired. A long time before that. Someone high up in the WWE was protecting him. JJ says, hey Tom, who do you think the tag teams will be for the women? I think it'll be a 4-team area. I think it'll be Io and Dakota Kai versus Alexa Bliss and Asuka. And then I think, looking across the way, we don't have any tag teams on SmackDown, so it will likely be Doudrop and Nikki Cross, and it would have been Carmella and Zelina Vega, but now's another injury. Jaden says, I love Alexa's old goddess persona. Yep, I liked it too. I also like a current one. Spider-Bear says, apart from Io and Dakota, which are the other teams? I did just discuss the only thing I know about that. I'm limited in what I know about this one, to be honest. Sean says hopefully Scarlett gets to wrestle this time. Triple H would like her to wrestle. There were no plans to have her wrestle previously, but she was also considered to be the prize, much like Maria Kanellis before her. Hector says, as much as I love Bray Wyatt, I get that he wants to be his own person, but he should lean more into his lineage, with his dad being IRS and Grandpa Blackjack Mulligan. There's a lot there, and honestly, I could get into a more wrestling-focused character opposed to the supernatural. If you're not keen on the supernatural characters, Bray Wyatt will never be for you. He is only interested in playing those characters. Jonathan Rodriguez, welcome, says, did I miss any news? Justin, hello. Yes, you did. There was news on Bray Wyatt. There was news on Lacey Evans, news on Karrion Kross and Kevin Owens. We still have some news on Sasha Banks and Naomi and some news on John Laurinaitis, and I will recap the news, so please do stick around. Sai, how you doing, mate? Says, hi, Tom and all. Hope you're all good. Tom, you've shaved. Does this mean anything? Does it? Does it mean anything? That's the thing that I think people need to realise. When I change my look, it means everything. Tom Talks Rubbish, hello, says, big love, welcome, Tom. When is my interview on your channel going live? Noob says, Asuka posted a tweet yesterday saying, where's her partner? Some say it's Kairi Sane. In reality, it's Alexa Bliss. Some people are reading into that. It's Alexa Bliss. Spider-Ball says, fans on social media speculated that Carmella got injured in a live event. I've seen the video. She did. Jermaine says, thanks, Tom, for the Bray Wyatt news. I always thought with Bray it always was about creative control, and he wants total control. Thank you for clearing that up to the people. Indeed. There's a lot of nuance to it, but really it is quite simple. That's the situation that we found ourselves in. Burko says, Zelina possibly returning tonight. There were plans for Zelina Vega to return tonight, but unfortunately at this point in time, with Carmella out injured, it is unlikely to be in any sort of tag team capacity. Kingsander says, have I missed Sasha Naomi updates? You have not. Jaden says, Simon, maybe we can chat on Twitter during Raw. Maybe you guys can. That'd be a great thing. Just add your @s for Twitter in the chat at the moment. You guys can find each other. It'll be beautiful. Spider-Boss says, I'm surprised that Liv Morgan got booed in Greenville last Friday. She did tap out and people were really quite upset about it. We'll see how it plays out in future. They're going to change tact a little bit, but this does sort of fuel the possibility that what we're actually going to end up with is a heel Liv Morgan. Thank you very much for subscribing on the YouTube side, The Nerd Guru. Thank you kindly. For everyone who isn't already aware, every like helps, every chat helps, and we are currently only 8 subscribers away from 1,400. If you can subscribe, please do so. It makes a big difference. Johnny Mendez says, is there anyone who you personally hope Triple H signs or re-signs? Johnny Gargano definitely is one for me. I think there could be really great wrestling matches there, but I also kind of want Johnny Gargano to go to AEW, to wrestle Kyle O'Reilly, to wrestle Daniel Bryan, to wrestle Adam Cole again, to wrestle the Young Bucks, to wrestle Omega. I honestly, with the matches on offer, I'd rather see Johnny Gargano go there, and then potentially we get Kenta versus Johnny Gargano. That said, maybe he can go there short term. Who can tell? Sai says, a question. How much creative control did Bray Wyatt have over his last run? Very limited. He made pitches, but they had to be approved by Vince. For example, the Firefly Funhouse match, entirely Bray. The Swamp Fight, mostly Bray. After that, very little was Bray. Razar says, is there any Vince projects he was pushing that are going to get put on the back burner now, like Theory, Triple M, and Lacey maybe? Triple M, no, they are still planning to push that. Theory, still planning to push him. He is, after all, currently holding the briefcase. However, what I will say is that Lacey Evans looks like on the back burner for now. Sean says, is the report from Fightful true that USA pitched to WWE to have an interim world champion on Raw since Roman's schedule doesn't let him be on Raw? Yes, that is the case. The USA Network has gotten a lot more involved with the WWE programming of late. They are trying to improve the product on their show to get the numbers a little bit higher. However, what I will say about that is that the plan for an interim world championship was denied by the WWE because they are intending to split the championships. They have not done it yet. Burko says, heard the match at Clash of the Castle will be a triple threat but only for one title. To be fair, everyone there will be on SmackDown, so maybe that is the case. Either way, I don't see Roman losing it. Spider-Boss says much the same. Is that to avoid Drew taking the pin? No, Karrion Kross will not be taking the pin. Drew is the most likely person to lose the match. Sean Island says, how's your day going? Going very, very well, thank you. I did mention earlier we had a bit of a step up and a bit of a big moment in my relationship. Had a really good time with it. Slightly ruined by the fact that the kids mentioned it way ahead of time because they were bouncing around and screaming and shouting because they were so excited. Burko says, Owens and Zayn versus Usos definitely coming. That has been discussed. As I mentioned, The idea that's gaining a lot of steam right now is babyface Kevin Owens. Bailey says on Sunday, WWE premiered a biography on Lex Luger. His relationship with the WWE was distant for many years, but do you see this as a prelude to a Hall of Fame invite? I do. I see that as exactly the case. They are working towards that end, and I do think he'll be one of the names on the ballot, though he won't be first ballot for it. Spider-Boss says, babyface Kevin Owens cut a good promo on Shane McMahon back in 2019. Shane McMahon at that point was super heel, so good time to do it. Jermaine says, give us face Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos for the tag titles at some point, sooner rather than later for me. Burko says, Zero News reported Kross returning before anyone. Yeah, but was it directly from them or was it from someone else? You have to ask that. Also, you have to look at things in like the whole thing. I did see that Zero News did recently post about a list of things that have been confirmed, and very few of them had actually been confirmed. So that raises question marks for me. But I do pay attention to these things because I could be wrong. I could very much be wrong. So I track things like that. I track a lot of people that people say, you can't trust these, to see if their sources are actually accurate. For example, a lot of people really don't like Brad Shepard. I get why. That doesn't change the fact that he has definitely at one point had sources within the WWE. There are just also several scenarios where he was guessing. Jaden says, did Sasha and Naomi just change their names back to Sasha and Naomi WWE? No, not to my knowledge. I don't believe they've actually changed their names. James Stewart says, it doesn't matter. Clearly what he has to say does. Indeed, James. Indeed. Connor says, hello, Tom. Hello, Connor. Hello, Connor. How you doing? How you doing, mate? Danny McLeod says, is Vince still informed in any way, shape or form? To my knowledge, no. To my knowledge, it is not the case that Vince McMahon is involved in any way. However, the most likely scenario for Vince McMahon involvement is in Stephanie's ear. Sean says, Wrestling World CC tweeted that it's been 889 days since Seth has last held a title in WWE. That last title was the Raw Tag Team Championships with Buddy Murphy. Shows how recently Buddy Murphy actually left, because that's nearly as long as Roman's been the Universal Champion. Thank you, Robs. Appreciate that. Devil says, anything we should expect from tonight's Raw? Really, really good women's tag team matches. Also, a good showing for Ciampa. Not necessarily the showing that you're expecting. Austin says, I'm still excited from Friday. Shayna finally getting in the title picture. Indeed. I don't necessarily think she's claiming the championship, but if people keep booing Liv Morgan, she probably will be doing so. JJ says, I wanted to ask but always forget, why did Triple H turn Becky back face? I'm really not complaining though. The plan was to have Becky Lynch turn face. Maybe not necessarily this soon. I mean, we knew that Ronda Rousey was going to turn heel this soon. I've spoken about that before. I made a bit of a wave on Twitter talking about it. But Becky Lynch, the plan was always to turn her face so that when we eventually get Becky versus Ronda, it is face Becky versus heel Ronda. Johnny Crow says, why do you think they are having the IC and US titles defended on Raw and SmackDown instead of Clash at the Castle? These are largely overflow matches. The Ciampa match is not something that they planned on a pay-per-view, but it's an opportunity really because it's really quite simply an idea to get him in a match without really putting too much stock into him. It's a way for Triple H to say, this is what I'm doing now, you'll better get used to it. And it's a very effective way of doing that. For the IC Championship, it was left off the SummerSlam card for a reason. Triple H likes smaller cards, and it's just a match that was going to happen. It's a way of keeping people interested for the next few weeks, because it's still a little while before we get to Clash. Spider-Boss says, Sasha and Naomi fit perfectly on the tournament for the women's tag team titles, since there are 3 teams only. They do. They absolutely do. And I do expect them to feature in some capacity. So let's talk about Sasha Banks and Naomi. Yesterday, Dave Meltzer reported what I reported a week ago, that there is an expectation that Sasha Banks and Naomi will sign on the dotted line with new contracts that they have been offered. So, a few people backstage who spoke to them at their recent signing are saying that they have signed new deals with the WWE. So there are further indications from several people backstage at those signings and at those meet and greets that a new deal is in place with Sasha Banks and Naomi to return to the WWE sooner rather than later. I cannot sit here and say they'll be on Raw. That information is simply not available. However, even more people now, no smoke without fire, are very, very certain that Sasha Banks and Naomi are returning to a WWE ring. I know it's not the biggest news. That's why I've not put it in the title. I've not built the entire video around it. But even more people are now saying that they are confident the contract has been signed. These are people who met and spoke with Sasha Banks and Naomi. Still more news to come, particularly about John Laurinaitis, which I know a lot of people are excited about. Steve says, after the Usos Sami Zayn segment on SmackDown, I really want to see Zayn win the 24/7 championship. Then they would provide some hilarious moments. They would be perfect for that. A quick thing there, as we're talking about Kevin Owens, and we spoke briefly a moment ago about potential Vince McMahon favourites who won't feature so much anymore. Ezekiel. I do need to specifically mention Elias/Ezekiel. Neither of them are likely to be pushed at the moment with Vince McMahon not directly involved. James says, it was funny when Bray Wyatt told a biased fan facts. Yes, indeed it is. It is absolutely wonderful to see a wrestler come out and actually clarify things. He does that, Samoa Joe does that. There's a few who really don't like the dirt sheets in any way, shape or form. Spiderboss says, when Charlotte will return? Soon. Thomas says, do you think that a possible storyline for Owens could be coming and teaming with Sami to take the tag championship from the Usos after that segment of SmackDown? Yes, I do believe that to be the case. The return of that tag team. The two of them haven't worked together for a while. It was nice to see them reunite on SmackDown, and there is a lot of interest in getting Kevin Owens to SmackDown to work with Sami Zayn. This would potentially facilitate the movement of the Usos to Raw, at least briefly. Jaden says, will the whole tournament be on Raw or will it last a few weeks? Will it be crowned tonight? To my knowledge, it will last for a few weeks. We'll see the first match this week and it will last for a few weeks. There are plenty more people they need to have involved. I do believe it will be a 4-team tournament. That's what I heard previously, but under Triple H, I've not heard differently. Spiderboss says, I hope that Liv doesn't end up being a Nikki Ash 2.0. You and me both, mate. You and me both. Simon says, what were your thoughts on Liverpool's drop points against Fulham? Haaland's incredible 2-goal wing debut for us City away at West Ham. I thought Fulham were a very pleasant surprise and really shocked the system a little bit. And I think it was a welcome shock because Liverpool needed that. I think Nunez starts matches in the future and I think we will be better. As regards Haaland, yeah, he did what we expected. Tommy says, rather see AJ versus Johnny wrestling? Certainly a possibility, but AJ Styles' push is coming soon. It's not coming now, it's coming soon. Nick says, any idea of Ciampa trying to break Twitter this afternoon? Trolling with the Gargano logo. Trolling, yes. He's paying attention to what's going on Twitter and he is trolling a little bit, but he is also trying to encourage certain wrestlers and certain wrestling fans and certain wrestling bookers to consider the idea. If fans are really into the idea of Johnny Gargano coming back, then Johnny Gargano can certainly ask for a little bit more money. Good looking out from Tommaso Ciampa. James says, I hope we may get some NXT takeover quality matches going forwards, and that seems most likely. As I say, at SummerSlam they removed 2 matches that were planned to be on the card in order to let the card breathe a little more. Triple H likes smaller pay-per-view cards, which facilitates more long matches. Hector says, with the reports of Johnny Ace essentially being let go, I wish this one could be a good moment where Triple H gets super petty, hits him with the budget cuts and future endeavoured. It will be cruel irony. There is a reason that John Laurinaitis was quietly let go, and there is a reason that he did not get the we wish you well in your future endeavours. The reason for that, and here's the news on John Laurinaitis, they don't wish him well in his future endeavours. They don't. It is not the case that John Laurinaitis walked. It is a case that John Laurinaitis was told, your services are no longer required. This was announced to the wrestlers at a time, I believe it was SummerSlam itself, when Stephanie McMahon had a meeting with the wrestlers backstage about everything new going forwards. What is the new system going forwards? It was announced to wrestlers there and in and around that time that John Laurinaitis was gone and would not be returning. They do not wish him well in his future endeavours. We have not seen anything of that, and we are not going to see anything of that. John Laurinaitis, for his part, is believed to be expected to quietly go away, but the investigation from the board is ongoing, and I want to be very, very clear here. The investigation from the board is not just into Vince McMahon. It is into a certain culture at the WWE, a culture which allowed this to happen. They are investigating the culture. John Laurinaitis is unlikely to be the only person to go. Thank you very much, Brandon, for your subscription on YouTube. I very much appreciate it. If you are watching on YouTube, please do remember to hit that thumbs up. And also, the more people chat on YouTube, the more this show grows. So just by talking, commenting, even amongst yourselves, the show will grow in the eyes of YouTube and we will get more people finding it. We are getting to the point now where we have at least 100 people in every show, but I would like to keep going. So everything you can do to help, a like, just commenting away is fantastic. And please remember to hit subscribe. King Xander says, Liv reminds me of Miz during his first reign. You wanted them to get the title, but once they did, you see how limited they are in ring wise. Well, she wasn't given much chance against Ronda, to be completely honest. I think against Shayna, we'll see a lot more of what she can actually do. James says, news also broke today that Tony Khan has been very impossible to work with on set, been having a difficult attitude to deal with, and more all man, he's falling apart. This came from Ringside News. Was it an exclusive of theirs? Please clarify this one. I have heard something about that, I've got to be honest. Not much, because I don't have many contacts in AEW, but I have heard there are some difficulties in AEW at the moment. A few people aren't necessarily happy with their lot, and Tony Khan's name is coming up more than I expect. Johnny Mendez says, with Triple H in charge, can we expect a stricter brand split with their own titles, etc.? Yes, we can. The plan was always to separate the championships. That day is coming sooner rather than later. But it is being pushed back further and further because Roman. James says, USA Network are taking it seriously again. They're always good when they pressure them. The USA Network is the main reason that I'm fully aware these championships are splitting up. The USA Network is continuing to put pressure on the WWE to make that happen. They are not happy to not have a champion at the top of Raw. Devil says, could we see EC3 return as he was part of Triple H's NXT that got called up to the main roster? Very unlikely. He's not someone they consider likely to be a success on the main roster. Jermaine is talking to Simon. Austin says they should do it how Jericho, name redacted, did it for the ICW. Angle did it for the IC title and European titles. I agree. I would love that. However, everyone's on SmackDown, so they can't really do that with Kross, McIntyre, and Roman. There will be opportunities. I think if Seth was involved in this, we'd have a very different scenario. James says, I like this network brand and needs to take it to this level. It's always good to have that. I like the brand split. I'm happy with the brand split. I actually very much enjoyed having brand-specific pay-per-views, but we are where we are on that one. James also says, definitely when they do draft, have them in the war room and more, so it means more and is more special. I completely agree with that. I really liked when they did the first one on Fox and you saw people celebrating the people that they got. Connor says, I'm good, mate. How was your weekend? Very good, thank you. Very good. It's lovely and sunny. I just had a lot of walking, a lot of laying down, a lot of sleeping. Michael says, saw someone tweet that Sasha's matches and segments are being put on WWE Network playlists again. They are. They are indeed. That's something worth pointing out. Spider-Boss says, I never get why Sean Ross Sapp gets so angry and fans question his reports. Great question. I don't know the guy. All I know is he gets very angry at a lot of things. Kuro says, just heads up if anyone reads a news story about Tony Khan behaving unprofessional. Just letting you all know here, Steve Carrier dislikes Tony since almost all RSN writers press were banned from talking to anyone in AEW. So was it? Are you saying it was a Ringside News exclusive? Johnny says, apparently there's more news about Vince coming out. There is. With this, people's conspiracy theories about Vince coming back can be put to rest. He's not coming back. He's not coming back. There is more coming from the Wall Street Journal, and also the investigation continues. As I did mention, this is about the culture as well, and that does not stand in his stead. Sean says Seth versus Angelo Dawkins was announced for Raw. That is a Triple H thing, and that is a wonderful, wonderful Triple H thing. Michael says, I'm keeping an eye on this Zero News, guys. Never knew about until yesterday, saying Sasha and Naomi return at Clash at the Castle. Well, that's something we can test. Rizal says, are there any Raw matches going to be at Clash? Yes. Simon says, what's happening at Survivor Series, Raw versus SmackDown? Well, they'll have to split the championship to make that happen. James says, Johnny has done it. I already read that one. Sean says, happy early birthday to Alexa Bliss. 31 tomorrow. Well, happy birthday. Joey says, hey, Tom. Hey, Joey. Michael says, I thought it was telling that the C2E2 removed their stage names from the promotional material. Indeed, which means they had WWE's permission all of a sudden. Joey says, Sean WhatsApp reported WWE has interest in another released wrestler. There is a number of different released wrestlers. After all, I've just said early on in this show that they did have a conversation with Bray Wyatt. Simon said, who has a better chance, Seth, Drew, Kross dethroning Roman? Seth. Spider-Boss says Sasha's last returns have been on SmackDown. Indeed they have, as she is still planned to be there. Sean said, is Purge someone Triple H would bring back? Unlikely at this point in time. Joe Pardini, welcome, says, is Fiend come back? There has been a conversation about that. I will recap once I've caught up with the chat. Michael says, Zero News also says 8-team women's tournament. Things to keep an eye on to see if he's credible or not. Indeed, it's a chance for them to prove whether they are correct or not. Jane says, why is everybody mad at Sasha and Naomi for not being so close to the fans at the meet and greet? They should respect their boundaries. Not everyone is, but some people definitely are. It's just that those people tend to be louder than the ones who are actually decent human beings. Simon says, my favourite Bray Wyatt character is a Wyatt family cult leader. Me too. Joey says, could Kairi Sane come back to be a part of this tag team tournament? Yes, she could. That would certainly be very interesting with EO involved as well. Simon says, do you see Boss Glow in the tournament, Tom? In some capacity, yes. Spider-Boss said, John Laurinaitis, you're fired. Indeed. And James correctly saying he's been investigated too. That investigation is ongoing. Kuro says, do we see Jessamine Duke returning to the WWE ever? Personally, no, I do not. There is a point at which we just have too many people. Michael says, it's nice to see the board of directors doing their jobs as a check on the executives. Indeed, there is a dedicated panel of people within the board who are actively investigating the culture at the WWE that allows things like this to happen. Kevin says, if WWE bring back the tank for Shotzi, I have Shotzi and Lacey Evans together. That would mean a face turn for Shotzi, and that is not in the plan at current. Simon says, Punk was right all along since 2011-2012 about people power. John Laurinaitis in his awesome, epic, legendary shoot promo, douchebag, bland-handed, nonsensical yes man. Yeah. WWE 26 says, who do you see returning today? No one. I don't see anyone returning today. There won't be people returning every single day. Hector says, Tom, is a plan going forward for NXT 2.0 to have Fiend weekly events here and there, aside from having an event for the Big Four pay-per-views? Or is there a chance that we see takeovers return, or is that a product of the past? Takeovers are likely to return in some capacity. There will be dedicated pay-per-view style events. They need them in 2.0 to essentially prepare people for main roster. Michael says, not going to lie, I do with Karrion Kross I thought Karrion Kross would stick to controlling his narrative. Soon as the phone call was made, as soon as the opportunity was there, Karrion Kross jumped ship. Kuro says that Tony Khan's story was a ringside exclusive, specifically a Steve Carrier exclusive story. Thank you, Kuro. That certainly makes me question it in a big way, because ringside news exclusives are almost exclusively real negative. Get to tables, how you do, mate? There's a Triple H taking over creative and how well liked he is. Do you think Tony Khan is a bit worried with people leaving soon? I don't necessarily think so. I don't think he looks over his shoulder like that, but you do raise a good question. I think Tony Khan, if he is worried, will be a lot more worried about what's going on in his own company at the moment, getting this TV deal, and the fact that they have not at any point made a profit, even in yourself. Reyes Navarro says, the Fiend Bray Wyatt will be returning to sign WWE. Well, Reyes, I mean, you're the source there, so you would know best. Carlos says, will WWE have a bracket for the tag team tournament, or will leave it to surprises, or both? I do believe we're going to see a bracket tonight. As I say, I believe it'll be 4-team. I don't think they've got 8 teams, but I'm confident we will see a bracket tonight telling us what's going to happen on SmackDown as well. Kingsander says, the Sasha Naomi meet and greet negative reaction is solely coming from online users. None of the people who actually took those pictures said anything negative. People just want to bitch and moan. I did see one person who had a picture taken was not happy with it. However, I think he was being very fair in his criticism. I don't think he was being negative for negativity's sake. I think he was a little bit upset about it, and he has a right to be upset, but he wasn't actually angry at them. Thank you very much, Joseph Donovan, for subscribing on the YouTube side. I very much appreciate it. And if you are watching on YouTube, please do remember that thumbs up. We have 190 viewers right now and only the 43 likes. Every little does help, and every person chatting, you are helping as well. I am still catching up with the chat. We will reiterate what we've already discussed in the news as soon as I am able to do so. Jermaine says, hey Tom, just a little fancy booking here. Have Sasha come out tonight, hijack the opening segment of the show until Adam Pearce comes out and explains what the hell about the women's tag titles. Would be cool. I'd enjoy that, and would be very much on a par with everything I've heard about the plan. Johnny says, with you confirming WWE more open to signing indie guys, will the last tryout be the last college athlete only tryout? There will still be college athlete tryouts. However, most college athletes actually go around the tryout system. The tryouts are mostly for already invited indie talent that the actual list in question comes directly from Triple H at this point. Oh, apparently a wild Ric Flair appeared. Rick, are you still wrestling? Because please goddamn stop. I know you're not Ric Flair, but we're going to play. Simon says, your favourite Dean Ambrose WWE match? Mine was Seth versus Dean Lumberjack 2014 SummerSlam match. Mine was Dean versus AJ Styles TLC. It's just great TV. Thomas says, do you think that we'll be seeing brand exclusive GMs returning? I don't at this point in time. That may change, but I find it unlikely. Triple H not said to be a fan of GMs in general. Rizar says the Fiend should be the one to stop Reigns' streak full circle. Anyone but you, Roman, is indeed a thing. Bailey says, is Hit Roman any conversations about a return at some point? They are not. They are not. Swerve is in fact under contract somewhere else, so he's not available. WWE 26 says, who do you see return tonight in Raw? Already answered that. Don't necessarily see anyone. Rizal says, who do you think will be the top men and women switching brands in the draft? I could see Drew and Ronda getting drafted to Raw. I could see Drew going personally. Ronda much the same. I expect that. On the other side, I think Bayley will go to SmackDown. Kevin Owens, I think, is likely as well. And I have questions about Seth at this point. Thank you very much for subscribing. Sam Allington, every subscription really is a big help. At the start of the show, I was 9 subscribers away from 1,400. We have now broken that 1,400. Thank you, everyone. And please, do not stop. Rick says, anyways, I've been hearing people say Sasha shouldn't be back because she only cares about her spotlight and herself. Is this true? No. John Talks Everything podcast. Welcome. Says, Kairi Sane is teasing coming back to WWE to be Asuka's partner for the tournament. Is she doing that, or is she just playing along with Asuka doing that? James says, it's something there with AEW. They should have never tried to go to one place they can put you out. Just focus on yourself. I think if they had have just focused on themselves, they would realise that they're in a really good position right now, but they were never going to be competition. I think since Cody left, there's a lot less mention of WWE on AEW TV. Devil says, is Montez Ford still turning on Angelo Dawkins under Triple H? I at no point said that was going to happen, but I said I found it much more likely personally. Jane says, Sports Entertainment has reported that Peyton Royce is pregnant. I believe Peyton Royce reported she was pregnant before anyone else did. Thomas says, if they don't split the titles, do you think that we could see a match of the Bloodline versus a made-up team of Roman's main title opponent, the Usos' opponent, and someone else? We could. I do still think they are going to separate those titles. I do still think that's going to happen, but you got to do something at Survivor Series. And as I've mentioned before, with Triple H in charge, expect to see NXT involved in Survivor Series in some way. Carol22, welcome. Says, Fightful made a report about someone coming back that was released. Is it Bray? I cannot sit here and say Bray Wyatt is coming back. But the information I did share, and I'll recap all of it because there's a lot more to it, but at its most basic, there's been a conversation. The dialogue has been opened. The Viper, Randy Orton, says, my favourite Bray Wyatt is when he's part of the Wyatt family. Mine too. Joey says, I trust Triple H to book this tournament. He must have a long-term plan for the women's tag division. Indeed, and 2 weeks ago on this very platform, I said Triple H has a plan that is currently being put together, and we are going to see it shortly. Then, of course, shortly afterwards, we heard Bayley wants them involved. I then reported on Friday, spoiler warning, that Sasha Banks and Naomi, as part of their new contract conversations, wanted to have promises about the tag team championships, and lo and behold, that night, there it is. Rocky, I will reiterate that shortly. Spider-Boss says, does Kairi Sane need to be cleared for WWE for an in-ring return? Yes, that is the reason she is not currently with the company. Injuries and the WWE, based on the injury, are unlikely to clear her. Mohammed says, do you think Angelo Dawkins will turn heel? I do think Montez Ford is the most likely one at this point in time. Rocky says, AEW makes a debut every week. Why can't WWE make returns every day? Because they don't want to. They've got a lot less people as well. AEW, in my mind, not necessarily doing it right at this point. Simon says, your thoughts, Tom, on our city's hated rivals, Man United possibly losing Ronaldo, replacing with Arnautovic and Bologna, and also signing Rabiot. I think it's very similar to our Kyle Dempsey moment at Liverpool. Thank you very much, Harper, for subscribing on the YouTube side. Thank you, everyone who is chatting, everyone who is subscribing, and of course, everyone who is hitting that like button. 59 at the moment. Can we get up to 60? Please do remember to hit that thumbs up. Spider-Boss says, the crew wants Sasha to return at Clash of the Castle. No, the crew wants Sasha Banks to return every single night and to be in every single segment. We know this already. Rocky says, I think Miro is going to leave AEW soon. Possibly. He may have better offers at this point, but that's a discussion for another day. Jermaine says, is there any chance we get War Games for this year's Survivor Series on the main roster? Yes. There is also, as I mentioned, a quite strong possibility that we also get NXT involvement. Thank you very much, K-Dog, for subscribing on YouTube. Very much appreciate it. Thank you very much. Joey says, I saw a report WWE's interest in Japanese star Konosuke Takeshita. That came directly from Dave Meltzer. I haven't heard anything about that. Sean says it looks like Danhausen was at the meet and greet. There's a picture of him with Sasha. Was that a real picture? Because if so, I love it. Stuart says, liking the show, Tom. Hope it keeps growing. Thank you kindly, Stuart. I really do appreciate it. Okay. Appreciate that, Si. I'm losing patience with certain trolls. Rizal says, do you think the Fiend stopping Reigns would be perfect, making it full circle? I think if the Fiend was involved, that would be a great way to do it, but I'm not going to sit here and say, this is great, that's great. Grace Lester says, do you see leaving WWE regardless of the regime change, someone who feels like they're too far gone? I'd imagine that's who do you see leaving, and I'm not going to speculate on that. Not going to speculate on that. Stoner Foo. You're pointless. Goodbye. You add nothing of value to here. So, bye-bye. Striking Scully says he might show up on Raw tonight. We're making massive assumptions here, aren't we, guys? Massive assumptions. Now, I'm not big on assumptions, so I'm just going to say, very unlikely. Spider-Boss says if someone should beat Roman for the title, should be the Fiend Bray Wyatt. That is indeed your opinion. Rob says, anything out there in regards to Konosuke Takeshita? I heard that from the Dave Meltzer report, and honestly, I haven't heard anything about it. Kura says on the Ringside News exclusive, one of the site reported on it said it was unverified that Tony Khan was being unprofessional, but it was verified that communication backstage within AEW had become an issue. Could not verify if it was an issue between wrestlers and showrunners or between executive and TV networks. This was reported by WrestleVotes, I think citing mandatory as their source. Right, so it wasn't reported by WrestleVotes, it was mandatory that was the source there. I've never known mandatory to report anything. Never known that to be the case. Gray says, DC, okay, I've already read that one. Shadow Ninja 1288 says, hey Tom, welcome. I am new. Well, welcome to the show. Just about to sub, but I read something saying Triple H wants Bray as Bray and not the Fiend. I don't know if it is true or not. Have you heard anything on this at all? Bray Wyatt wants creative control of his character. It would not be up to Triple H. And that is the sticking point right now with a return for Bray Wyatt. Jonathan says the best thing with the brand split is the brand exclusive pay-per-view. Love those, and it made the brands feel more important. It would also mean more time to build them. So I do think that's the main reason Triple H is probably going to be a fan. Yes, Spider-Boss, Charles is travelling with Ric Flair right now. Simon says, do you think Liv turns heel, joins Judgment Day, reunites her tag team with Rhea? No. Daz Reynolds says, do you think any surprises tonight? I get that question every single show. Maybe. I can't sit here and say this is going to be the surprise tonight because that just spoils it. I'm not going to just flat out say this is everything that's going to happen tonight. Firstly, because I don't know. I'm not that connected. And secondly, I don't want to ruin it for everyone. So let's say, yeah, there's surprises tonight. But if you're counting on me to decide whether you watch, don't watch. James believes Tony Khan can't handle criticism. Hasn't been right since Cody leaving. Also, with everything coming out with Warner and more the Cody situation, it all makes sense now. There's been a lot of change. I wouldn't necessarily say he can't handle criticism, but he's certainly boisterous about it. Rizal says, will Karrion Kross fight McIntyre at Clash instead of him fighting Reigns? No. Sean says, Becky was in an advertisement I saw for Raw. Surprised she was featured despite being injured. She was featured because they haven't updated it yet. It's a very recent injury and it hasn't filtered out to everyone. Jonathan says, I hope Ciampa is no one can survive Fiend back. I hope so too. I would like it. No, nobody. I will catch up with the chat. And don't be sitting there telling people to stop talking, because by still talking, they're making the show grow. Now, if you'd like to catch up on the content and the news, all you have to do is rewind. It's all there. It is all there at the start of the show. All you have to do is rewind. This video is perfectly rewindable. You can rewind right now and then just come back. There is nothing stopping you from doing that. Nothing at all. So if you're annoyed at the amount of time it's taking, I suggest just rewind. And that's all you can really do. Camo says, do you see anyone returning tonight? So many questions about the same thing. Simon says, Tom, do you think Southampton will struggle this season? Yep. Thomas Witzel says, Fiend coming back to WWE, you think? Already spoke about that. That was our opening piece of news. I will reiterate as soon as I've caught up with the chat. Ben says, I'd love them to scrap the Universal title and bring back the big gold belt. I personally wouldn't. I know everyone loves that belt, but I'd rather just have a different and maybe better belt. King Xander says, interestingly, today is the 12-year anniversary of Sasha's first match, still 30 years old. Well, to be fair, she did start before that. It's just not technically the match that it should have been. Thank you very much, Jack, for subscribing to the channel. We are continuing to grow. Sorry for my nose itch. And I'm very, very grateful to everyone who is joining us, everyone who's subscribing, liking, and chatting. Devil says, will Theory be back tonight and continue the feud with Ziggler? I would like to see the briefcase on the line. The Ziggler versus Theory feud was a Vince project. I find it unlikely they'll go there, but Theory does need something. He does need something to do, and Triple H is considering his options at this point in time. Hector says, seeing how Triple H reintroduced Karrion Kross is how you make someone feel special and like a legitimate big deal. The entrance, the look, the presentation, even the close-up of Drew's head being rammed into the steel steps. I'm glad the days of overthinking how talent is presented may be over for the better. They also went black and white. They made it very clear that he'll be presented like he was in NXT, and for me, that is all I need to see. Joey says, Miro and Andrade seem unhappy with AEW right now. Every single wrestling promotion has people who are not happy with their lot. Miro and Andrade were promised a lot. They had promised a lot. They were promised a lot, but we are where we are. No worries, nobody. I get that you want the news, I get that you're here for the news, and I get that quite a lot of people are here for the news. But even if you've just joined, you can just zip back, watch the news part, and then come back. And then maybe you'll catch the recap later and you can catch up by skipping that. There are options available. Mosin says, will Bray return? I will recap that shortly. Mohammed says, do you think we will see The Rock versus Roman Reigns in WrestleMania 39? No. Anyone who reports that The Rock versus Roman Reigns is a plan for WrestleMania is guessing. The WWE have been trying to get The Rock for a long time, but his schedule makes it nigh on impossible. The Rock, right now, is not booked for WrestleMania. Spider Boss says, if the Street Profits break up, I hope Angelo Dawkins doesn't end up like Big Cass and Tucker. Tucker, no, Triple H won't let that happen. Big Cass, no, Angelo Dawkins won't let that happen. Rob says, Ambrose versus Triple H Roadblock 2016 was very good and had a great little false finish. I did quite enjoy that, yes. I'm also I've answered that. King Xander says, if NXT is going to be involved more forward, are they still going to be a pure developmental brand? No, their championships are now considered world championships again. You may have spotted that one. Thomas says, I might be on my own here, but for me, if Bray returns, I don't think he needs a title as from past experience. He's done better without the belt, and whoever beats him always has backlash. I agree with that, and I think that's a really good comment, Thomas. I completely agree, and I do think he's better as a special attraction away from the championship. Kuro says, mandatory is WrestleZone. It is indeed. Thank you kindly for reminding me of that. Get the Table says, do you think Triple H would give creative control to Bray? No, because then 100% his door is being knocked down by literally hundreds of people saying, okay, I want my character to do this. And you can't say no, you gave Bray creative control. It's not going to happen. Bay Bikachi, thanks, Bay. Sam Bikachi, I was too focused on your surname there, I do apologise. Sam Bikachi, welcome to the channel. Thank you very much for subscribing. Nobody says, what's your take on Wyndham's latest tweet? I've seen some far-fetched theories. My take on that, and I've spoken to people who are in the know about this, not too many, but those that are aware, is that it's something has ignited a new spark in Bray Wyatt. Now, I've been saying for a while that he's been approached several times. I'm recapping now on the Bray Wyatt news. He's been approached several times by a lot of different promotions who want to work with him. And it wasn't about the money for Bray. It was about creative control. He wants full control of his character, and that's why I felt the most likely landing spot was Impact. When there was not much interest in making that happen, he sort of lost interest in wrestling, and he started to focus a lot more. I do apologise for the itchy nose. I don't know what's happening there. I've got a sunburn on it. Oh no. What started to happen was that he started to lose faith in wrestling, hence moving to Hollywood, and the idea of a Bray Wyatt cinematic universe started to take shape. There is still a strong possibility that this happens. Something, and it may or may not be, a recent conversation with somebody in the WWE has reignited the spark a little bit. Now, there are still conversations to be had about the character of Bray Wyatt, but Bray Wyatt has more faith in the current incarnation, despite the fact that Vince McMahon was a huge proponent of Bray Wyatt. Vince McMahon is also the man who decided Goldberg should win. Sean Ireland says, is there any information about Chad Gable having a singles run? Nothing at this point in time. Chad Gable has been used, but will be used sparingly. We are going to see quite a bit of him, but Otis will still be his tag team partner. Rizal says there are videos currently being made on a YouTube channel called It Begins Again that insinuate Bray is working with Edge. People have been insinuating that for weeks based on Edge's comeback video. They are not working together at this point in time. James says, I'm not disrespecting them. It is what it is. They're doing it to themselves. I'm American, go to a lot of events. I've been to New Japan as well. Many more, just telling you how it is. You're entitled to your opinion, absolutely. Shadow Ninja says, Bobby versus Ciampa, who do you think will win tonight? Bobby. Thomas Witzel says, imagine we get Kross versus Bray at Clash at the Castle. Way too soon, especially considering Kross is more likely to be involved in a triple threat with Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. Daz says, do you think Ray will turn on Dominic? And what's going on with Seth? Seth at the moment is a journeyman. He's having exhibition matches. There isn't currently a creative plan for Seth. They are waiting for other things to become available, so they're taking their time with it. And I get it. As regards Ray and Dominic, too soon for me. I'd rather have them as a tag team because, my God, we need tag teams. Jack says, what's happening with Bray? I believe I've already answered that one and recapped it. Spider-Boss says, Liv getting booed. I hope it was one night only. They are trying to change tack to make sure it doesn't happen again. Alexis says, if you were Triple H, how would you book Bray Wyatt? Well, first, I would try and get him back to the company. Joey says, I saw a report that T-Bar and Ciampa are getting character changes. Do you think more wrestlers will get changes? A few, yes. Ciampa isn't getting a massive character change, though. As regards T-Bar, he is being repackaged at the moment. Jeffrey Brown says, is Bray Wyatt coming back? I've definitely shared that news and recapped it before this point. Michael says, looks like Angel Garza got his name back. He did indeed. Spider-Boss says, my question is how WWE can make Karrion Kross a big deal again, having win matches. That'd be great. Sam says, why do people want surprises all the time? Because people are really short attention spans. They get bored. Jeffrey says, imagine if Bray Wyatt comes back and attacks Seth. Okay. Will says, do you think Triple H would love to bring in wrestlers from Stardom for a show or two? No, I don't necessarily think that, but there were plans for an NXT Asia that Triple H was helming. That's one of the reasons Kairi Sane stayed on the WWE books, so that could be something they go for. Thank you very much, Drizzy Cam, for your subscription as well. Thank you kindly. Daz says, what do you think will happen to the books on AEW? 6-man matches. Jeffrey says, I'm so excited for Raw tonight. Haven't been this happy in a minute. Sean says, was a 24/7 title a Vince project? The 24/7 title was the USA Network project. Kamal says, I think Triple H would book Andrade way better than in AEW. That is certainly an opinion you're entitled to. We may see how that goes. Spider-Boss says, I can't remember who is the only woman that fans didn't turn against once that woman became champion. People were even turning on Becky Lynch, to be fair. Jack Leach says, what's Enzo Amore doing now? Releasing rap albums that no one is listening to. Sid, welcome, says, I feel like Miro had a point. I work full-time and have 3 kids. I don't have time to watch indies in New Japan. I just want to watch AEW and know who these people are. I don't think it's unfair. But at the same time, there is an amount of company loyalty that they do expect. Thank you very much, Roberto Pariamachin, for subscribing on the YouTube side. I did go for a Spanish accent there. Please let me know if that is not how your name is pronounced, and I'll try and get it right. Hector says, do you ever see a point in the future when Nick Khan could promise certain assurances that maybe Triple H may not agree with, or Triple H being head of creative and talent relations, is he involved when negotiations take place? He is involved when negotiations take place. Nick Khan doesn't offer assurances. That's not his game. That's just not his game. Kevin Solomon says, what's up, Tom? Hey, mate, it's been a little while. I believe we did a podcast way back when. How you doing? Spider-Boss says, Mandy losing the title soon. I do believe Toxic Attraction is being called up shortly, so yes. Megan, all right, Megan, there's odds on Toxic Attraction being one of the teams in the tournament. If it is a team, they have to be. If it's only 4 team, very unlikely. Michael Smith says, I think Triple H will give Bray the creative control he wants. He absolutely will not. That will categorically not happen. Either Bray will back down or Bray will not return. It's that simple. Jermaine says, hey Tom, do you think WWE will split up the world and tag titles before the draft? Before the draft? No. During the draft? Maybe. What I do think will happen is it will be split up before the Survivor Series, which will also happen before the draft. Michael says, what does Nick Khan think about Triple H bringing people in if he was the one trying to cut costs? Well, I think this is obviously very telling of the fact that Nick Khan is bringing people in for less than they were on before they left. So there is a negotiation going on. It's not a case that Triple H brings someone in and Nick Khan's just there going, oh, I didn't expect that. Nick Khan signs off on them. Nick Khan has signed off on everyone that has been returned. Nick Khan signed off with the offer for Sasha Banks and Naomi as well. Nick Khan is agreeing with these, but he does ask for certain assurances that they're going to be used in a way that benefits more than the cost, and that they may come in on less salary. Joey says, I wonder if Triple H will look to bring in more tag teams to add more depth to the division. You don't need to bring in more tag teams, you just need to use the tag teams you've got. Shogun says, news about Wyndham Rotunda. Indeed, I will recap again once I catch up. Not long now. Thomas Witzel says, who would you want Bray to go against first when he comes back? If he comes back, I would like it to be Karrion Kross. Nobody says any info on the movie Wyatt is doing, done, or gonna do. It is a horror movie. It sounds at the moment similar to the Kane movie, to be completely honest, but he's keeping it quite hush-hush. Jonathan says, Pete Dunne, I gotta imagine, is going to be more of the NXT version than this Butch thing on SmackDown. Kind of yes, kind of no. We're going to see more Pete Dunne in, joint manipulation and all that jazz, but we are definitely still going to have Butch on the card in, indeed, the Butch character. Bailey, I've just seen that you've quote tweeted the announcement of our show today. I've just retweeted that. Thank you kindly for helping us grow. Devil says, what's up with Angel Garza? Him and Humberto Carrillo seem to fall down the pecking order. There has been less of a focus on tag teams recently, and now that Triple H is in charge, he's taken a few people off TV while they work out what to do with them creatively. It is, after all, creative hiatus. Ari says, give the WWE title to Karrion and the Universal to Drew. Roman needs a break, plus every brand has main titles. They do. I do want them to split their titles sooner rather than later. I don't think Karrion's the guy, because Karrion is officially on SmackDown. Bit of backstage news there for you, but he's officially on SmackDown. Michael says the Fiend can create a 6-person stable together with Edge and Cross by turning Finn, Priest and Ripley into a mega faction. But he has no interest whatsoever in doing so. Rizar says, great show, I'm really enjoying this. Thank you, Rizar, I appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, or you haven't been for too many, please do consider subscribing to the show. Please do consider hitting like as well. Every little does help, and the growth of the channel has been incredible recently. So far, we have peaked at 203 viewers, which is absolutely amazing, and I'm really, really grateful to everyone who's been joining us. I'm nearly caught up now, and I will be recapping the news from the start of the show about Bray Wyatt shortly. Kevin says, I've figured out who Fightful was talking about when they said WWE has interest in another release star. Really, Kevin? Jump right in. We'd love to hear it. King Xander says, Candice and Mia are two women that I can see coming back, and they'd fit perfectly on SmackDown. Candice, yes. Mia Yim, we'll see. Dave Olsen says, Bray signed 3 months ago. WWE is waiting for the right time, getting close. Are you the source there, Dave? Are you the source? Because that's the first I've heard of it. Rizar says, do you think the Hell in a Cell with Bray and Seth was the beginning of the end? Yeah. Yeah, I think we all know that. Spider-Boss says, last time I saw Enzo Amore was on MLW. He does still wrestle. Megan clarifies this later. But I felt it was funnier to say he's making rap albums that no one listens to, because that's also true. Sean says, I don't see Mandy losing to Zoe. Neither do I. I see a one-on-one match with Roxanne coming soon after Cora Jade has been vanquished. Mr. Doomsday says, is Bray coming back? I will recap as soon as I've caught up with the chat. And Augusto says, hi. Hi, Augusto. How you doing? Megan says, Enzo's still wrestling. He was in a match for a promotion in Georgia just a few days ago. Spider-Boss says, we need a team that can beat the Usos. We do, and there are teams that should be doing so. For example, the Mysterios. There's no reason they can't do that. Steve says, I don't care about Bray coming back. His gimmicks never worked. Some of them did. I really enjoyed the era of Wyatt. I've got that t-shirt. Thomas says, Alexa goes back with Bray if he comes back. Nope. Spider-Boss says, any chance of Liv retaining a Clash at the Castle? Yes, a high chance. Ari wants to bring back Braun. That's very unlikely. Very unlikely. He won't accept the pay cut. Traffic says, about to watch from the start, just got here. Thanks again, Tom. Thank you, Traffic. Welcome to the show. Razar says, wait, if people are returning for less money, is Sasha and Naomi getting more or less if Nick can't sign off on it? More. It's a cost-benefit analysis. If they can balance the benefit, they're willing to pay the cost. Will Chisholm says, with some of the women in NXT having diva feeling, do you think Triple H will keep them like that or change it? He will keep them like that. He's very happy with those characters. He was involved in creating them. Hector says, you've mentioned Bray being on a cost-benefit analysis list prior to him being released. With that being said, how is that determined? Because he did sell a lot of merch and brought many eyes to the product. Do they just feel like he'd never make the money to warrant the contract he was on? Yeah, that's exactly it. He was on one hell of a contract. One hell of a contract. And it was simply the case that it wasn't considered worthwhile for what they could actually afford. It was considered to be way too much. Much like Braun Strowman. They just weren't interested in paying him that amount any further because he was never going to recoup that amount. He was very good for merch, but merch don't pay anything close to that. You could be the bestseller on merch by 5 times more than the current bestseller on merch. You are still not making a dent in the salary he was on. Shadow Ninja says, I heard that Drew and Roman will only be for the one title. I don't know what on if true. Well, Shadow Ninja, I'll need you to source that information and say where you heard that from. Spider-Boss says, great show. The Sasha news gives me hope. Thank you, Spider-Boss. DC says, first time commenting on the show. Well, thank you kindly. Welcome. Would it be better for Dominic to be in NXT? Contractually, Dominic Mysterio does not go through developmental. The signing, the use, and the into the main roster immediately for Dominic Mysterio was part of the deal that brought Rey Mysterio to the WWE. Rey Mysterio was simply too expensive for the WWE until certain promises were met and kept. The development and use of Dominic was one of those promises. I've reported on this previously. A year before Dominic Mysterio started wrestling, I reported on Sportskeeda that he would skip NXT because I was already aware of this. And that report is still out there if you want to check it. Sean said, is this Zero Dude credible? Why is everyone asking me this? Why is everyone asking about Zero News? Like, if someone's out there saying, I'm always right, then we got a problem. Because no one's always right. Nobody's infallible. That's the problem that I'm having right now. What I advise you to do, if you want to know if they're credible, note down every single report that they do. And then 3 months later, come back, tick off which ones happened and which ones didn't. That'll tell you how credible they are. That's what I do. I take note of these things. I have a percentage chart. I don't catch everything because I don't have the know-how, but I keep a percentage chart. If I had a website, I would make public that percentage chart. But one thing I can advise, go to Cage Side Seats and they do a rumour look back every week where they look back 6 months and say what's true and what's false. Every single journalist has been wrong. Every single one. Okay? That is the best way to check these things. So 6 months from now, 3 months from now, look back and you'll find out who's credible. This, by the way, I should point out, we've been going with spoiler warning for 18 months and the regulars here are still regulars here and we continue to grow. So I'm pretty happy with what we're making here. Rafe says, hello, how are you? Very, very good. Thank you, Rafe. How are you doing? Kings Andy says, seriously, what is the obsession with the Fiend? Can someone tell me a great match that he had? I enjoyed him with the Wyatt family and with Randy, but that's it. It depends what you're looking for. I personally, and I've said this before, when it comes to wrestling, I can't pretend to be the biggest wrestling fan. I'm actually more of a sports entertainment fan. I like the stories. I like the ridiculous. I like the fact that someone gave birth to a hand. I like the weirdness like that. I do. So actual wrestling, I don't worry about so much. In that element, the Fiend is incredible. The spectacle is amazing. Kura says, could a possible condition of Bray coming back involve having his brother brought back as well? And that's why talks are taking so long. Talks are not taking so long. Talks have been ongoing for maybe a week or so. Not that long. Not that long. It's certainly a possibility. People do put those sort of things into contracts. But that doesn't mean it's involved. As I said, the main sticking point for Bray Wyatt is simply the creative control. That's what he wants. Thomas says, Alexa dark character soon? Nope. Spider-Boss says, I hope WWE builds well. Cora as a heel. So far it's not impressed me. Haven't been watching enough, but I do like this Cora Jade character. I think they could do well with it. Sean says, do you think Ronda should have went for NXT? No, in no way, shape or form. Raymond says, hello Tom, just logged on, what did I miss? We had news on Bray Wyatt, news on Kevin Owens, news on Lacey Evans, John Laurinaitis, and a brief update on Sasha Banks and Naomi. A brief update on that. That's what you missed. If you want to rewind and check that, by all means do so. But I will be recapping in just a moment because I'm about caught up. Randall says, any plans for Balor? Balor versus Edge is on the way. Connor says, I can confirm I'm still here and don't plan on leaving ever. Thank you kindly, Connor. Swervo says, salute, just subbed. Welcome, Swervo. James says, yeah, Tom, right, though you have to keep note of it. Always been like that. CM Punk only returned and debuted 1,000,000 times until he finally shows up 3 to 5 years later. You're absolutely correct. You do have to keep track of these things. Megan says, yeah, you're stuck with me now, and I'm honoured to be stuck with you, Megan, and I mean that from the bottom of my goddamn heart. Shadow Ninja says, from what I heard, you haven't sourced this, Shadow Ninja, so I'm going to stop reading it. I need you to source your information. Because I'm going to be entirely blunt. What you heard, it has no history of credibility. I don't know you. I don't have a history of reporting to fact check. I can't fact check, well, I may have heard this. Source your information, then we'll talk. Kingsander says, by the way, what happened to Sasha's involvement in the Hunger Games prequels? I am not aware that that was a thing. I may have missed that one, so I can't really say, to be honest. Alan Peter doesn't like Roman Reigns. It's always great when someone new comes in and immediately is massively negative. It really makes me want to keep you around. Shogun says, if this is what he wants, he'll find a compromise. Triple H is not Vince. Triple H is not Vince, and it is possible they will find a compromise, but it may take time to do so. That said, the conversation has started. Michael says, give me Dakota and Io as tag champs. That is exactly where I think we're heading. Jaden says, are you going to do a watch-along? For SmackDown, yes. For Raw, no. I have work in the morning. Hector says, say Bray is back in the fold. How would you book him? I cannot say that because I don't know if he's back in the fold. Come on, guys. We can't answer the hypotheticals here. Spider-Boss says, if Edge versus Finn happens, does Finn win? I'm not going to spoil everything for you, Spider-Boss. You'll have to watch the match. Leo says, I just want to know, is there news on Wyatt returning to WWE? Yes, and since this is the most recent comment, let's jump into this. Let's recap based on the news at the very top of the show. So, as regards Bray Wyatt, there has been contact between someone in the WWE and Bray Wyatt. The reason we haven't seen Bray Wyatt back wrestling since he was fired is twofold. Firstly, what he wants. A number of different wrestling promotions approached him, and it wasn't about the money for him, it was about the creative control, from what representatives there have said to me. The creative control is what he wants, so that he determines how his character is used, when his character is used, and the development of that character going forwards. Nobody would give him the assurances that he was looking for, so he did not return to wrestling. As a large part of this is that he is somewhat, from what I've heard, fallen out of love with wrestling at that time. And this is one of the main reasons he moved on to Hollywood, and the idea of a Bray Wyatt cinematic universe was born. There has now been a conversation, and it is said to have sparked interest, renewed interest in wrestling with Bray Wyatt. That is the news. I'm going to be really clear. I don't want to sit here and bullshit. I don't want to sit here and say things that I don't know. What I know, a source told me there is a renewed interest. Multiple sources told me there has been contact between someone in the WWE and Bray Wyatt. And many people have told me that the main sticking point is creative control. Bray Wyatt will not get creative control from the WWE. Doesn't matter that Triple H is there. He will not get creative control. So they either hit a compromise, or we write this one off as a bad job. I'm going to get on to our last few comments now. There's still plenty to talk about. Please do remember to hit that thumbs up. We are on 91 likes right now. We repeat to 203 viewers. We have 154 in the chat right now. We need 9 more likes to hit 100. So if you can, please do hit that thumbs up. It really has a massive impact on the growth of this channel, as you'll know, because this is only the second time we've reached 200 viewers at once. If you've not yet done so, please consider subscribing, because spoiler warning is a regular show and you get news like this that you can't find anywhere else. We were the first ones to talk about the new contract deal for Sasha Banks and Naomi. We were the only ones to talk about Becky Lynch's return the day before it happened. We were the only ones to say exactly what was going to happen with Sasha Banks and Naomi at WrestleMania, and there is plenty more in that time. First ones to talk about Ronda Rousey returning to the WWE 3 days before it hit the headlines because someone else reported it behind their paywall. We report the news here. Thank you very much, Brian Williams, for that subscription. We do shows every Monday and every Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. UK time. We report the news here without clickbait, without hyperbole, and without the massive amounts of speculation. All I know about Bray Wyatt, for example, is what I've already reported. I cannot, in good conscience, sit here and tell you he's coming back. I don't know. And that is what you'll find here. Sean says, Road Dogg said Brock turned down the match with Jinder. Road Dogg is saying a hell of a lot right now. Lance, how you doing, mate? Say, Tom, any news on what is going on with Ezekiel going forwards? Could we see Elias coming back? Thank you very much, Uriel Williams, for subscribing there. And Shalil Sadiq has just said subscribed as well. Thank you very much and very kindly as well. As regards Ezekiel, he's one of a number of projects that Vince McMahon was personally involved with the writing for. He is currently undergoing a creative hiatus while Triple H works out what to do with him. He was a bit of a pet project for Vince McMahon. He may actually suffer a little bit under this new environment. Will says, do you see Triple H calling Zoe Stark in the next 6 months to a year? He'll call her at some point. They talk all the time. Rizal says, have you seen the YouTube channel I said? No, I have not seen them. And honestly, by what you're saying, it doesn't sound like they're for me. James said, these rumour mills do anything for clicks. It's how they get paid. If you do read Sports Illustrated, they have very good info. Absolutely right, James. Absolutely correct. When it comes to the clickbait, it's not something I ever try and get involved in. But you're absolutely right. It happens way too much. Randall says, I really hope the Demon King makes his return in the near future. Now that Triple H is head of creative, so much potential with Finn's character. He wants that creative control of it, and I think he'll get a lot more now, but he won't get creative control. Spider-Boss says, why Brock versus Jinder never happened? Well, the only thing we have to go on is Road Dogg, who was there at the time, saying that Brock didn't want it. Kevin Carpenter says, who do you think is least likely to jump from AEW to WWE? Least likely? At the moment, Sammy Guevara. Bismo says, with Triple H in control, do you think there's ever a possibility of Forbidden Door of AEW or Impact within the next 2 years? No, absolutely not. It does not benefit the WWE in any way to do that, but it would massively benefit the other person. Austin says, is it Triple H who talks to Bray or someone else? I cannot say one way or the other. I don't know on that one. I just know someone has had that conversation. Connor says, has Bronson Reed been discussed backstage about coming back? I always felt there was more to be seen from him. He seems pretty happy right now in New Japan. He has a working contract there, but I wouldn't say it's ironclad. So it's possible. However, I don't know if there's been that particular discussion. Hector says, Sean Waltman tweeted a gif with the text reading, good luck on your future endeavours. You'll love to see it. James says, WWE is always known for going for a younger core that are hungry and want to be on top. Yes and no. I mean, Bray Wyatt, it's not exactly a younger person. I also think it's very fair to say that Randy Orton still gets pushed and he's not necessarily a younger person. So they sort of refresh, and I think Triple H will be doing that, but they'll still be using people. Vegeta Lover thinks that the least likely is Kenny Omega, which is fair. Shadow Ninja said, I heard that it was also Fightful who said that Kross will be inserted into Drew McIntyre Roman Reigns feud, be involved in a match for one of Roman Reigns' titles as opposed to both. Thank you very much for sourcing that. Sai says, 3 more likes to hit 100. You know what to do, ladies and gents. To be fair, right now, 1 more like to hit 100. 1 more thumbs up, and I hit 100 on this video. Camo God says, who's going on a creative hiatus? Most people aren't going, they've already gone. For example, Kevin Owens, Lacey Evans, and Ezekiel. King Xander says, T-Bar getting rebranded back to Dominik Dijakovic is a win. He can slot right in the US title picture or even go over to SmackDown and take on Gunter, which would be sublime. That does sound like a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun. Curtis says, Bray back in WWE. There has been a discussion with someone from WWE, and Bray is apparently more interested now than he has been. But, as I've said, there are blocks to that. The creative control is the main one. Shalil believes they need Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, to take the championship back from the tribal chief, as he never lost it from him. Yeah, but that means if you do that, then a whole lot of things are going to change. Whole lot of things. And we'll basically end up going with the right of custody for Dominic, which is Roman at the moment. Lost and Searching. As regards Sasha Impossible Hollywood projects, at the moment she is under a contract that does not allow her to focus on any Hollywood projects without the WWE's permission. She would need to have signed a new contract, which is certainly what is rumoured at the moment, in order to make that happen. Rizal, what are you referring to? What are you referring to, Rizal? I don't understand the issue. James Jones says, with wrestling, you can't give them the whole creative control unless it's there to benefit all. It's always been like that since the 80s. Yeah, we don't want a Hulk Hogan situation. Michael says, Fightful Select is reporting Dexter Lumis as among talent being discussed to bring back. We're going to get oversaturated again if this keeps going, tell you that. James Jones says, Tom, I was talking about ones with jump. They're usually their style. They will take a keep. I'm not sure I understand you there, James. Could you rephrase for me? Okay, mate, okay. Hector says, Sean Waltman commented on his tweet saying budget cuts are a motherfucker, such a great tweet. And Camo says, I think Triple H could really give KO a push and I think they will have big plans for him. He is a favourite. He will get the time for it. Shogun says, I read Triple H wanted Win to come back as Bray Wyatt and Rotunda wants to come back as a Fiend. Real or false news? Bray Wyatt wants to be the Fiend. As regards what Triple H wants, as I say, ongoing discussions about it. Kura says WrestleZone exclusively reporting 20 minutes ago, thank you Kura, that the plan for Randy Orton's return currently is to bring back the Legend Killer gimmick. Can anyone in chat please tell me if anywhere else reported that story? Now, I'm going to be real blunt on this. When it comes to WrestleZone, I've known them to report things and then delete them in the past, without retraction. I've known that. So I think it's worth keeping an eye on there to see if this actually plays out. But that's certainly not a promising sign from Matt Riddle. Thank you for subscribing, Chris. Shalil, I will not be visiting Saudi Arabia. I don't even watch the Saudi Arabia shows. Sean says, yay to a possible Index reunion. That would be fun. Jonathan said, this Zero News guy just reported that Dexter Lumis is showing up tonight. Right, so get me... A lot of people have been asking about Zero News. And let me just point out a trend, okay? Let me just point out a trend. So, for example, Zero News received credit earlier on in this particular stream for the fact that Zero News reported first that Karrion Kross was returning. Did Zero News report that right after Fightful Select mentioned Karrion Kross could be returning? Now, Fightful Select, as Michael just brought in, just reported that Dexter Lumis may be returning. And Zero News has just reported that Dexter Lumis is there tonight. Is Zero News picking their moments and hedging their bets? We may find out tonight. Kingsander says you can't bring everyone back. Some people did get rightly released, in my opinion. I agree. Some people maybe weren't ready for it, as it were. So we'll see how it plays out. Noob says the last time we saw Dexter was in the NWA when he was in a match against Bryan. Oh, why not? Why not? Vegeta Lover says Bo Dallas to return. Very unlikely. Lee says I would love the Fiend to return so much. Megan is loving Index. Camo says I know you answered before, so I'll ask this. Do you think there's a chance or possibility of someone returning tonight? There is always a chance or possibility that someone will return tonight. James says, when you're ready, the younger core, Wonk is a fan, asked you who would jump, and I meant WWE. Gotcha. Would go for that younger, hungrier core. That is true and a fair comment. Gotcha. Kura says, Zero News reports exclusively from Fightful. So they did source on that. Thank you very much for clarifying. RB7 says, hey, Tommy said earlier that putting McIntyre in a feud across and have Cross go over was to elevate McIntyre. Didn't say that. Did you misspeak, or if not, why is that so? I must have misspoken. I didn't realise that I was saying that. Thank you for asking for clarification. Thank you for asking for clarification there. It would be Karrion Kross winning that feud to build Karrion. So yeah, I must have misspoken. Thank you for asking for clarification on that. Devil says, could Ludwig turn on Gunter? Yep, it's certainly possible. Rizal says, Bo Dallas should come back and create a gimmick that is Barry Horowitz's son. Remember the guy that patted himself on the back? That would be awful. Austin says, we get Tom Extra. The shows are getting longer and longer, to be honest. There's still plenty of people. I'll wrap it up very shortly, but the shows are getting longer and longer. Spider-Boss says, Sammy Guevara to WWE would be weird. Indeed, it would. Kuro says, the person running the Twitter has said and deleted in the past that they gather all the paywall news and report it free of charge. Then are they reporting it? Are they the ones who are right? Carlos Colon says, where is Via? Coming. Creative hiatus. They don't know what to do with him at the moment, and that's because of Vince. Vince ran out of ideas. Hi Khalid. I indeed understand that you're hoping so. Thanks RB. I really do appreciate it. Megan says, it wouldn't surprise me if Loomis came back. He said recently in a podcast interview with Tommy Dreamer, he is still in touch with Triple H and Shawn Michaels, and they're on good terms. A lot of people who were fired from NXT are still on good terms with the people above them. Brian says, any chance your name is Dalton, any chance Bayley being brought back helps Sasha returning? No, completely unrelated. James says, you need to bring back key pieces. Dexter was one. His gimmick could work on the main roster. I don't think his gimmick works on the main roster at all, to be completely honest. At all. It just does not work for me. And there's been a lot of concern about that in the creative area. But Triple H is in charge now. Who can tell? Jonathan says, you're blowing up, bro. Streams are getting larger and longer. Pat yourself on the back. Oh, thank you, Jonathan. Hector says, I know this isn't wrestling related, but Tom, did you? Yes, I did see that. RIP indeed. Spider-Boss says, could we see a push for Drew after Clash at the Castle? He's already getting a push. He's featured every single week and he wins a lot of matches. Alfarella says, what are we watching tonight? I'm not. I'm going to bed after this. It's 11:30 at night here. Kuro says, V will never fully arrive. No, but he'll come lots. Camo doesn't want Loomis back. Sean says, if Miro did come back, would Lana come back or does WWE not want her? There is interest in Lana, but not interest in Lana wrestling. Razar says, Vince got future endeavour. Trey says, will ECW come back? Nope. Brandon says, I hope it's true the Fiend Bray Wyatt signed a contract with the WWE. Well, no one has reported that to my knowledge, Brandon. No one has reported that. Super says, hey Tom, don't you think Sammy Guevara will be better in NXT? I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think he's leaving. Camo says, I'm not watching Raw live. I'm not. No, it would be at 1 a.m. until 4 a.m. and I have work at 8. I can't do that. Ofa says, should I watch Monday Night Raw or not then? Great question. What that's down to, really, I feel, is your opinion. And Brian says, Omos not a favourite Triple H? No. I'm going to wrap it up there. It is 11:25 at night. I do need eventually to go to bed. Thanks, Camo. That's a lovely thing to say. Sometimes it is just a case of no. So we have gone from 1,391 subscribers to 1,430, and that is the largest increase we've ever had in one show. Thank you everyone who's subscribed, everyone who's liked. We ended on 107 likes. We peaked at 203 viewers. It is a great time to be Tom Colohue. I can definitely say that. This is only our second show which has reached the point of more than 200 viewers. Now in future I will continue to do spoiler warning 5 p.m. ET, 10 p.m. UK, and I hope to see as many of you as possible there in future. Of course, if something doesn't interest you, by all means skip and catch up later, but thank you so much for the 2,429 views, for the 203 peak, for the 110 likes now, for all the new subscribers. Thank you everyone for being lovely right now. Sai, RB, Camo, Raymond, James, thank you kindly. Thank you everyone. I'm going to wrap it up here, and all I'll say as usual is that I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. Thank you Frank Gonzalez for subscribing, and I'll see you all on Friday.